if you yank it really hard, then you can even get a healthy hair and yank up the roots. So you can see follicular tissue. That's like the hair root. That's what it's called. The thing it's clinging to the bottom of the hair. Often that has the DNA that we're looking for. But so if it's yanked, so we have a lot of follicular tissue, we can say, hey, there was some violence here, and the hair was yanked out. However, you don't always have this follicular tissue after the hair was yanked out. And it depends on what kind of hair. I mean, if it was in the telogen phase, you're not going to have it anyway if you have, or not enough of it. But the thing is, if you yank out hair in the anagen phase and you yank it really forcibly, you can often get this follicular tissue. So if you see a lot of hairs with a follicular tissue, that is an indication that someone's hair was yanked very forcibly and it was removed. Again, this tells us a little bit more about the crime, and we do want to reconstruct the crime. There's also a bit of an idea about hair coming from a dead body. That's what they call root banding. That's where the hair is dark below the skin level. If it comes from a dead body, it'll be dark on corpses. But ordinary hair that falls out of ordinary people in the telogenic phase doesn't have this. So if we find the hair that has darkening below the skin level, we can say, wait, there was a dead body here. And maybe the person kept the dead body here, and we can find out more information based on the dead body being here. It doesn't form as fast in cold weather. This idea, by the way, root banding, believe it or not, it is contested in court. They argue back and forth about whether it is good enough to prove that's from a corpse. So the idea is that it does come from a corpse, but in a court they can contest this. Well, DNA, we didn't deal with DNA yet, but you probably have heard of it in the news that if you have the DNA match, that's the guy. It's very generally true. Again, we're going to deal with that and explain that later. So we'll work on that idea that if you got the right person's DNA, you got the person. You can match DNA to a person specifically, which is generally true. So how do you get DNA from hair? Well, you get it from the follicular sheath at the root area. That's where you get it from. If you pull out the hair, it's got that thing. You can find enough cells in there to get enough DNA to test and find who this hair belongs to. However, if it's in the telogen phase, there is not enough DNA found there. So we really want hair that's yanked out. I mean, we don't want people to have their hair yanked out, but that hair is the best for evidence. The hair that gets yanked out best, however, is when it's in telogen phase, when it's halfway out. So if the hair is violent, if the crime is violent, you can have anagen stage hair with a follicular shave, but it's not always available. One thing that is pretty much available when you have hair that is 1 to 2 centimeters long, and let's say 1 to 2 centimeters is about this long. Most hair that you find is at least that long. So you do have enough hair to test for what they call mitochondrial DNA. Briefly, every cell has a lot of mitochondria. The mitochondria have their own DNA. So you can get the DNA from the mitochondria, even of a hair. It's a lot more complicated a procedure, but it can be done if you have a hair that's 1 to 2 centimeters long. So you might think, hey, look, looks like we can get DNA from hair, even though you don't have the root. Well, not that well. For the main reason is that it goes through the maternal line, meaning a person and his mother will have the exact same mitochondrial DNA. If a person who has a sister from the same mother, he and his sister will have the same mitochondrial DNA. So you can't isolate one single person from using mitochondrial DNA. But again, you will narrow it down, and that is often very important. There's a case, I believe it was Casey Anthony case, where they suspected. Well, this is like a very interesting situation. Someone had her daughter was gone, was missing for 31 days. In other words, her daughter was supposed to be at home or whatever it was, and the mother knew it, and the daughter was not home. And for 31 days, The mother knew the daughter was simply, we're talking about a 7-year-old girl, I think. Her 7-year-old daughter, was supposed to be home and just wasn't home. And the mother didn't care. She was even seen, I think they even had videos of her dancing at bars, partying. So why in the world? I mean, can you imagine that? A parent, whose daughter is vanished for a week, 2 weeks, and partying? For 31 days, she didn't mention anything until I think she blamed the I think a nanny, and the nanny was found to be innocent anyway. And her mother said, I used her car and it smelled like she had a dead body in the trunk of the car. So they suspected her. There's a lot of circumstantial evidence showing that the mother killed or something to her daughter and kept her daughter in the trunk of the car. Eventually, I think they found the body elsewhere. But the point is that they really want to know, did the mother do this? I mean, what mother knows her child is missing for 31 days and doesn't report it? So it sure looks like the mother's guilty. But but they didn't have any real proof, real physical evidence as proof. They suspected was that the mother duct taped her daughter's mouth and I think strangled her or whatever it was, and killed her. Duct taped her mouth and I guess then I think nose also shut, and kept her in the trunk of the car until she could, get rid of her. And after 31 days, she decided, well, okay. I'll just say that I'll let everyone know that the child is missing. So they checked the trunk of the car, and they found a hair. That's really all they could find, a hair. There was no ordinary DNA that they could identify it as being of the daughter. I mean, again, the daughter doesn't belong in the trunk of the car. If the daughter's hair is in the trunk of the car, the mother must have put her there. The mother had the car for those 31 days. So the mother must have either put her there or known she was put there. In any event, they did not have ordinary DNA, but they did have mitochondrial DNA. And they did match it to the daughter. The problem is, remember, the mitochondrial DNA is the same for maternal relatives. Her mother had the same mitochondrial DNA in her hair. So, yeah, there's a hair with a daughter's mitochondrial DNA, but it's also the mother's mitochondrial DNA. So you can't do anything with that. So it was interesting. So there was no forensic or scientific proof that the mother did it, and they exonerated the mother. This is a very interesting application of the idea, what they call the CSI effect. They did not have any scientific forensic proof that the mother did it, so the jury exonerated. There was a lot of circumstantial evidence that shows the mother actually did do it. Scientific evidence, not. Circumstantial evidence, yes. And if they would use their logic, it would seem to be something's up with the mother. Why would the mother not care that her daughter, I think it was her only daughter, was missing for 31 days and partying during that time? But the jury, again, we're assuming the CSI effect here. The jury said, but the science didn't show it. Therefore, they're innocent. Now, remember, that's a CSI effect. You can say someone's guilty or innocent despite the science. So, the court cases and guilt and innocence are not only decided by science and forensics. They're also decided on very unscientific ideas, like